And we are live. I'll go ahead and call to order the regular meeting of City Council for September 5th, 2023. Council member Williams called me a few minutes ago, had a last-minute family issue and is unable to attend. Clerk Timmons is out ill today, and so Deputy City Clerk Christina Russell will be standing in, so we'll make sure that we make her read everything at least 2 or 3 times. But with that, we are ready to proceed with the invocation and Pledge of Allegiance. Councilmember Gardner?
Let's pray. Our Heavenly Father, thank you for this day, Lord, and we're thankful that we can be here tonight to conduct the city's business, God, and we just pray for wisdom and all the things that we discuss and talk about tonight, Lord, and we appreciate the ability to be in this position to represent the citizens of Maumelle, and we ask that everything that we do, we will look to what is in the best interest of this community that we serve, Lord, and that will always put others above self, God. Thank you so much for the blessings that you have given us here in this city, and we're thankful for all those that serve us every day as first responders and city employees and everyone that takes care of this great city, Lord. We just ask for the wisdom tonight to do the city's business and allow us to find someone to serve each and every day. In your Son's name we pray. Amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Councilmember Gardner. With that, we will proceed on to special guests and announcements. I think now is a fair time to introduce my new Chief of Staff, Deb Roush. Deb, come on down. I know a lot of y'all actually know Deb from various places. I will tell you this, she is I said a Tasmanian devil, but my office is spotless, clean, and organized, a task that Scott Grummer says no chief of staff before her, including him, has been able to get me to organize that. So I just wanted to introduce Deb. What's that, get your office? Wait, just give her more time. So I wanted her to introduce herself to you.
Do I say my address?
No.
Everybody else gets to come up and
Oh, you can say your address.
Okay, good. Deb
If you could pull the
Roush.
mic toward you a little bit more,
Okay.
please.
Well, it's nice and tall, though, like me. Deb Roush, 4 Fairway Woods Circle. Okay, that was just fun. So I know lots of you, and so I'm going to start with my family first. So I've lived in Maumelle 27 years. So my kids were 4 and 1 when we moved here, and they've all graduated, and I have a son and a daughter. One's 28, one's 25. So Terry, my husband, and I have loved living in Maumelle and raising our kids here. And then most of you know me. I do own my own marketing firm that I'm with a partner. But prior to that, I was the executive director of communications for the Pulaski County School District. So that led me to knowing the police officers and Parks and Rec and everybody. I was there when we opened Maumelle High School, and got to introduce that to the community, so it was a lot of fun. So my experiences in project management and writing and marketing and organizing. So that's me.
Awesome. Well, welcome aboard. I
Thank
just
you.
wanted the council to put a face to the name or to be aware of your existence, although I'm sure most of them already are
Yes.
in
If
different
I can
fashions.
do anything for you, just let me know. Okay.
Thank you very much. With that, we'll move on to approval of the minutes. Y'all received a copy of that in the council packet. I'll open the floor for discussion. If there is none, I'd entertain a motion to adopt the minutes.
So moved.
I've got a motion and a second. Any discussion on that motion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying yes.
Yes.
All opposed, no. Motion carries. We will move on to department reports. Was set to be Nicole Vogler. I was notified today that she is out sick as well. And so rather than terrorizing another department head by making them scramble at the last minute, she'll be here at the first council meeting next month. Planning Commission report was Councilmember Williams. So if there's anyone that wants to chime in, if not, you can take a look at the minutes or watch the video. With that, we'll move on to procedural motion. At this time, I'd entertain a motion to have all ordinances and resolutions read by title only.
So moved.
We've got a motion and a second. Any discussion on that motion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying yes.
Yes.
All opposed, no. Motion carries. With that, we'll move on to unfinished business. The first item of unfinished business is the third reading of ordinance 1093, changing the name of Commercial Park Drive. Madam Deputy City Clerk, if you could please read that by title only, please.
Be it enacted by the City Council of the City of Maumelle, County of Pulaski, State of Arkansas, an ordinance to be entitled Ordinance Number 1093, an ordinance changing the name of Commercial Park Drive to Maumelle Village Drive.
All right, thank you. Open the floor for discussion.
Motion to approve ordinance 1093. Second.
I've got a motion and a second to approve ordinance 1093. Is there any discussion on that? Seeing none, Madam Deputy Clerk, roll call vote, please.
Councilmember Mosley,
Yes.
Councilmember Grunwald,
Yes.
Councilmember Mazzoni,
Yes.
Councilmember Gardner,
Yes.
Councilmember Tierney,
Yes.
Councilmember Shin,
Yes.
Councilmember Holt.
Yes.
Motion carries. Ordinance 1093 is adopted. That brings us to the third reading of ordinance 1094, accepting dedication of certain streets and drainage. Madam Deputy City Clerk, if you could please read that by title only.
Be it enacted by the City Council of the City of Maumelle, County of Pulaski, State of Arkansas, an ordinance to be entitled Ordinance Number 1094, an ordinance amending Ordinance Number 979 and accepting and confirming the dedication of certain streets and drainage in the development known as Cypress Bend at Maumelle Crossing, formerly known as the IM at White Oak Crossing.
All right, I'll go ahead and open the floor for discussion.
Motion to adopt ordinance 1094. Second.
We've got a motion and a second. Is there any discussion on that? Seeing none, Madam Deputy Clerk, roll call vote, please.
Councilmember Mosley,
Yes.
Councilmember Grunwald,
Yes.
Councilmember Mazzoni,
Yes.
Councilmember Gardner,
Yes.
Councilmember Tierney,
Yes.
Councilmember Shin,
Yes.
Councilmember Holt.
Yes.
Motion carries. Ordinance number 1094 is adopted. With that, we'll move on to the third reading of ordinance 1095, accepting and annexing public road and rights-of-way. Madam Deputy Clerk, if you could please read that by title only.
Be it enacted by the City Council of the City of Maumelle, County of Pulaski, State of Arkansas, an ordinance to be entitled Ordinance Number 1095, an ordinance accepting and annexing public roads and the rights-of-way that abut or traverse certain annexed land commonly known as the Ascent Development Property.
All right, I'll go ahead and open the floor for discussion. Mr. City Attorney?
Just to inform the council, Mr. Grummer had brought to my attention that there's a step, of course, prior to annexation where it goes through Planning Commission first. We did put this on the agenda of the Planning Commission, and they did pass a do-pass recommendation to the City Council on this. I have that right, Mr. Grummer? Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir. Councilmember Mosley?
Yeah, I was in that planning commission meeting there. I was surprised they had added to the agenda. It was something I think Mr. Grummer caught, that the planning commission did have to do a do-pass recommendation. I do have some questions for Mr. Grummer, if he would mind answering a couple, that'd be great. I actually drove down there about a week ago and drove on Short Marche. I don't know if anybody else has done that. It's hard to get to. It's hard to find. And the street is fairly narrow. It's in decent shape. I didn't see any potholes, but it is narrow, so you know, some cars may have to kind of go off the road on either side. Would you agree with that? Is that,
Yes, sir.
okay. Yeah, how, are we taking in, would this take in the whole road or just half the road?
It would take in the whole road fronting this particular property.
The whole road, so we'd be on the hook for both sides then, I guess.
Yes, sir.
Okay. What about trash, police and fire? There are some houses to the west of that road there where it turns that would be coming in on that. What do we do
No,
about
sir.
those houses? Do we do police, fire, trash, that sort of thing?
There were no structures that came in with this annexation. It's a vacant parcel of land with no improvements. All other structures that are adjacent to this property are not in the city, would not be in the city of Maumelle. They're in the county and they rely on county.
Okay, so all those, there's only about 3 or 4 houses along there. There's a real scenic overlook that goes down to a big field down there, and there's a A-frame house down there, I think. It's up above, because I imagine that floods down there. But that house isn't part of it?
No, sir.
Okay. All right, so we have no obligations down there. I did talk to a member of the Quorum Court, just asking him about that, and I was told that we would be on the hook for improvements if the county decides to go ahead and do some improvements down there, that we would have to improve our portion. He said it's on a list for improvement, but he said Barry Hyde is not very anxious to do any improvements down there, so he wasn't sure it would come in very soon. So I saw the city attorney frowning at me there.
I'm sorry, what improvements would you mean? You mean
If
improving, the county's talking about improving the road?
Yeah, if the county improves the road on both sides of that, then I think we have to go ahead and improve our part.
I'm not sure.
No, sir. It would be probably prudent if we did, but the county cannot force the city to improve the road.
Okay. All right. You wouldn't mind check on that if you know how to check on it. But, this Quorum Court member may just have been a little bit in error. I'm gonna be a no vote tonight. I feel like somehow or another we're gonna get on the hook for maintaining that road, and I don't see that is there a public need for that property and that road? Does it do something for the residents?
So, just as a reminder, the road is a requirement of the annexation.
Right.
So if the road doesn't come in, the annexation doesn't come in. The annexation, the benefit was actually in terms of Maumelle residents not wanting hunting to occur in that property. So they purchased, a resident purchased that property, began the annexation procedures so that it's in the city limits, so that they're not hunting and firing. That area backs up to Natural Trails Estates, the subdivision with the walking trail around the wetland, and there was concern that someone could be literally 10 yards over and firing and shooting in that area. And that was one of the reasons. Mr. Grummer?
And one of the other reasons was concerns over logging inside that wetland area, trying to protect the habitat. There was an opportunity to preserve this property through its acquisition and putting it into the city of Maumelle for our ordinance that restricts timbering.
And so then that treat area would have to adhere to the city's development or timber management plans and that sort of stuff, whereas it can be logged currently without without any influence from the city, and I think it's pretty easy to log in the county.
That's a good point, Mayor. Thanks. Mr. Grimmer, what about the land between the Natural Trails Estates and the actual flood area of the bayou? Can residential houses be built in there? There appears to be pretty good space there.
It's most of it is all floodplain. there might be a house that could be built down in there just a little bit, but for the most part, most of it is floodway, and then there's a portion that's floodplain. In the floodway, you wouldn't be able to build anything.
Okay. I did notice some for sale signs along there for,
You mean along White Oak Crossing?
yeah, along White Oak Crossing that goes.
So that's other areas that are not part of this property, but down there would be difficult to develop based on the floodplain.
Okay. Mr. Grummer, do you have a vision for that area? Is that something Maumelle is interested in taking in where the road dead ends up to Short Marche, where they've got it blocked off? The area there between there and I-40, is that something we're looking at for commercial, or what, how do you see that developing down the road?
Well, I can't predict what the future has, but just because of its easy access to the interstate and with the intention of development on the south side of White Oak Crossing, I would say that it's certainly a great area for additional commercial development long-term down the future. So having some of that into the city, I think, in the long term would be a benefit.
Okay, you see that more commercial as opposed to residential?
I think there could be, residential in areas, just depends on the location and where it is and location to the White Oak Crossing.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Grummer. That's all I've got.
Councilmember Gardner?
Motion to approve ordinance 295.
Second. Mr. Mayor, I have a light on.
Yes, sir, as do other folks. But I have a motion and a second to adopt ordinance 1095. Councilmember Holt, you're up.
I apologize, I didn't get to visit with Mr. Grummer. I just have one or two brief questions, if I may, please. I apologize, maybe you come back down again. From my own lack of understanding, when we take a piece of property like this, we don't actually own it. The owner still owns the property,
That's correct.
so the owner can still work the property or do whatever he wants to, or does he have to have the city's permission now?
So when it comes into the city, then it would fall under our zoning and land use ordinances, so he would have to comply with our zoning regulations depending on what he wants to do with the property.
If the owner, as did happen out on 365, when the owners of the property out there in that road that goes down all the way to the railroad tracks off of 365, and we took in part of that property, isn't that correct?
Yes, sir.
But they objected to it, so we just have the authority to overcome that?
No, sir, the people who owned that property, as in this property, wanted to bring it in. Their neighbors did not want them to bring their property in. The property owners voluntarily annexed in.
Okay, that's fine. It was my understanding from the gentlemen and the people that I talked to from out there, they were vehemently objecting. But that was my question. If they object, we can still do it anyway, as I'm understanding that correctly.
There's multiple ways to annex. We cannot, this is called a voluntary annexation. Another type of annexation, there's island annexations, where if the city completely enclosed an area, the city could force annexation. If there was a set of properties, a number of properties and property owners, there's what's called a 50% plus one annexation, where the 50% plus one sign a petition saying they want to come in. The city council can make a determination as to whether they want to bring them all in, and then ultimately that decision is done by the county judge. And then there is an annexation where 100% of the people could not want to come in, but that requires going to the ballot box.
So we annex this at the request of the owner, am I understanding that correct?
That's correct.
Okay, no objection. That's all I have. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Councilmember Shin?
One more question. I think this was actually brought up in a previous meeting, but did we determine how much road frontage we were covering there?
I think it was around 200 feet roughly.
All right, that's it.
All right, we have a motion and a second to adopt ordinance 1095. Madam Deputy City Clerk, if you could please, well, we've read it, so roll call vote, please.
Councilmember Mosley,
No.
Councilmember Grunwald. Yes. Councilmember Mazzoni,
Yes.
Councilmember Gardner,
Yes.
Councilmember Tierney,
Yes.
Councilmember Shin,
Yes.
Councilmember Holt.
Yes.
Motion passes. Ordinance 1095 is adopted. That brings us to letter from Forvis. Councilmember Mosley.
Yeah. I didn't mean for this to be a major item here. I just wanted to put this letter, it was in the July 18th, 2022 council packet before we started those audits. And I remember getting that letter and I thought, wow, this is great. This is the first time we've gotten a letter from the auditors before the audit. And they're encouraging our participation. They're looking forward to really doing a good job here. They're talking about internal controls and compliance with requirements and this and that and the other. And it's addressed to the Honorable Mayor and members of the City Council. And it covers the audit years 2020 and 2021, which we're currently engaged in. So on the following page, it says, we welcome any input. This is again to council members you may have regarding the information discussed above. We also welcome any insight you have related to other risk areas or other significant risk areas that you believe warrant particular attention. Says we understand the appropriate person. They kind of did a little cut and pasting here, I think. And the governance structure with whom to communicate is the Honorable Mayor and members of the City Council. It doesn't just say City Council, it says members of the City Council. So that means, then the next sentence says if for any reason any member, say Board of Directors, but City Council, would need to contact us, please call Mr. Elmore or Mr. Coleman, gives the phone numbers. So they're encouraging our participation in this audit, and that is a classy way of doing it here with this letter. They're a top-tier auditing company. I don't know if anybody's that familiar with Forvis. They're international, from what I understand. They're one of the biggest ones in the world. So they've reached out and they've definitely made the city council members part of this audit. So I would say that we're not bothering them if they reach out. In fact, I think, if you ask me, it's if you haven't reached out to them, you probably be a good idea. It's probably what they're encouraging. They just like to answer any questions and that sort of thing. So it's not unusual to contact the auditors per this letter. I reached out as soon as I saw this letter. I called them up on the phone, had a visit with them, got to know them, and then as you're aware, I check in from now and then to see how the audit's going. So that's all I wanted to say about this. Anybody have any questions or anything?
And then just one additional thing, they typically inquire of department staff or certain positions in the city where you kind of are given this form and ask questions about whether you have anything to point out or anything that they should be aware of. And I know Councilmember Mosley, you being especially interested in the audit, I asked them to include you on that list as well. So they should be reaching out to you every time for that letter as to whether or not you have any thoughts or concerns about the audit on top of that. So, and that should have been for the last one too. But with that, we'll move on to new business. The first item of new business is the first reading of ordinance 1096, amending the annual business registration fees. Madam Deputy City Clerk, if you could please read that by title only.
Being enacted by the City Council of the City of Maumelle, County of Pulaski, State of Arkansas, an ordinance to be entitled, Ordinance number 1096, an ordinance to increase annual business registration fees and solicitor permit fees to designate a portion of said fees to be paid into the police and fire fund and for other purposes.
Thank you. Councilmember Tierney, this is your ordinance. The floor is yours, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I was on the committee that revamped the Little Rock business license fee, and it's one of the things that helped Little Rock stay ahead of us as far as wages for the police and fire, and that's one of the main emphasis here, is to try to create funding for the police and fire. Because, you know, we're falling behind on wages. I mean, they're asking for more. Now, this is not going to completely bring us up. This is not a complete solution, but this is one thing that will help, and you know, we need to do a bunch of little things before we get to where we have to do something major in the future, and you know, do some things now. You know, that old phrase about a stitch in time saves nine. This is not a tax, it's a fee. It's a cost of doing business. And this ordinance helps reimburse the police and the fire department for the services that they provide to small businesses. We're currently the lowest in the state for business license fees, excepting for cities like Conway, who only charge an ice cream vendor license. But they cover their expenses with an A&P tax. That type of tax is something and I'm sure most of us would like to avoid. You know, we don't want to put that onto our residents, and you know, that's, you know, a fee that really the businesses should pay, because this is a service to them. You know, this we've updated the planning and permits. We've updated the animal shelter fee schedules. It's time to do the same for the, you know, business license and the solicitor fee schedule. It's a schedule that hasn't been updated since the 1980s. So we're really antiquated here. And this is just trying to bring us up to date and help with the police and fire funding.
Thank you, sir. I'll go ahead and open the floor for discussion. Councilmember Mosley?
Is this the same that you introduced about a year ago or whenever that was?
This does have differences, yes. There are some things that people didn't like in the last one. We eliminated that. City Attorney Thornton also pointed out that previously we didn't include the solicitor fees in there for updating. So, you know, there are several changes.
Okay. But we basically are bumping everything up about 4 times if I.
Right, yeah. Previously, I'd hope we could do it just in tiny increments, but we're just getting so far behind the game now, we don't have time to, you know, if we really want to help, you know, the police and fire departments, we really want to try to, you know, get this thing back up to where it should be. You know, we can't do it in tiny increments anymore. Too much time has been lost. So that's why we just thought, well, let's just get where we need to go.
How much do you think will be raised from?
You know, that's the question I kind of wanted to get City Clerk Timmons to make a comment about, but she's unfortunately not here tonight.
Okay, yeah, I'd be interested to know if it's a significant amount or just going to be 10, 20,000 or what.
Yeah, it's not going to solve, you know, the funding problem, but this will help. So going in the right direction.
I'll pass. I'll come back to me, please.
Councilmember Gardner?
Thank you, Mayor. Councilmember Tierney, I looked up the 2022 version that was proposed, and Mr. Mosley just mentioned this. You know, it was back then you were asking for a 200% increase, and now we're at 400% increase. What has happened in the last, I guess, 10 months to do a 400% increase versus a 200% increase from the previous year?
Well, a lot of it is just the fact that we're just falling behind and trying to keep our police and our fire staffed. And, you know, so we don't need to do half measures, you know, because this was something I planned to do in, you know, like increments 1 year to another year, you know, to try to smooth the bite. But it's one of those things where we just need to do something,
So I guess 10 months ago, I didn't vote for it then. And it honestly, it wasn't because of the fee increase. While it wasn't much, it was mainly because it tied the revenue to the police and fire fund. And I'm not saying I don't support the police and fire fund. It's just that we move money in there, and then it is required to be spent on the police and fire. And I would rather that money stay in the general fund so that the council can then allocate those funds to whichever department it needs. If it's police and fire, so be it. That was my primary reason for not voting for it last time, in addition to having the list posted on the website of those that were delinquent. But I was curious about what the 400% increase reasoning was from last year. I think you explained that, but I'm just not a fan of taking fees and assigning them to a specific area so that we then can't modify them later unless the council were to come back and modify it. I mean, if it was just assigned to the general fund like everything else, totally fine. And then if we want to use some of those funds to increase police and fire pay, so be it. But I'm just not a fan of assigning little fees here and there to different departments. I would rather the council be able to retain control over where those funds are spent. So that's just thoughts that I had. Thank you, Mayor.
Councilmember Holt?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We all are going through a discussion with the representatives of the police department, and they're asking for a specific amount of money for them, and I have no doubt but what we will support that. I certainly will. That is.
Mr. Holt, could you pull the mic down just a little bit, please? Thank you,
Here.
sir. Thank you.
I apologize, Mr. Mayor. I will support that in their behalf. If the fact that we are so many years behind in requiring these payments and everything, business registration fees, we should have people clamoring to get in here, but you only have to drive around Maumelle Boulevard going out toward 430 or anywhere else, and you see businesses everywhere. I just can't, in this day and time, what we're hearing on the national news, and every time we turn around, there's something else that's higher priced and higher priced and higher priced. I would like to find maybe some other way to support these people and help them be a better business and bring in more revenue as they are, rather than up it and try to do the payment that way. So in all respect to my fellow council member, I will be voting no on this.
Councilmember Mazzoni?
Yeah, a lot of good things in here too. Kind of like that you're taking off where a minor operating a lemonade stand is no longer. I've seen a lot of that in the news. But as far as you're concerned, yeah, I see where you don't want to tie up our hands with the police and fire, but statistically thinking, I mean, well over 50% of our expenditures are police and fire. We're always pulling significantly from the general fund for police and fire. So that's really a moot point if that's, I think anything that helps out any general fund is good.
Councilmember Mosley?
Yeah, I'd point out again, I think I agree with the comments by Mr. Holt and Mr. Gardner. I think it'd be nice to be the lowest. I think we ought to be proud to have the lowest business fees and things like that, to try to be business friendly to our businesses and prospective businesses. Also, I'm a little concerned about the home-based business. There's a lot of people that work out of their home and maybe don't really, it's not a huge corporation or anything like that, and $100, that's fairly stiff. I mean, I pay the 25. I think that's reasonable, but that's pretty stiff for what it is I feel like I'm trying to do. But I'd also like to, I would appreciate it if the Chamber of Commerce would put out their view on this, whether you have one now or can work one up by the next meeting or something. I'd be interested in your take on all this. And I kind of agree with Councilmember Gardner's argument on the just put it in the general fund or whatever. It's I don't know why we go through it, and I definitely want to know how much is going to be raised to see if it's really worth it to become one of the higher people. So at this point, I'm a no vote. So that's all I've got. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. I wanted to chime in. The home-based business did look a little bit high. $100 for a home-based business compared to $400 for an industrial warehouse. You can have a business doing hundreds of millions of dollars worth of business who the difference between $100 and $400 fee a year is gonna be, they probably aren't gonna know it. Whereas the difference between somebody who's got a small Mary Kay business or something like that at home, the difference between $25 and $100 does seem like a big jump. Council member, well, let's see who it is. Tierney.
Yes, you guys were talking about $100 being a high fee for a home-based business. I'm a home-based business now, and I've got to tell you that when I relocated my two businesses from Little Rock and North Little Rock, I went from paying $1,000 a year in a business license fee, which did not seem excessive. I mean, I was paying $500 in Little Rock, $500 in North Little Rock. Normally, Little Rock would be more expensive, but I had more inventory and I had a bigger place in North Little Rock. That's why they balanced out. And so I went from paying $1,000 in business license fees to $25. And I gotta tell you, the difference between $25 and $100 to most businesses, I would think would probably find that negligible. You know, because you pay more than that just to even be a member of the Chamber of Commerce as a home-based business. So, you know, I would disagree with you on the $100, but everybody has a different perspective on it. And that's my perspective.
Councilmember Grunwald.
I've got a couple of questions. I don't know if you'll know the answer to this on the spot or not, but so I agree. I think this is a really good concept with maybe a couple of adjustments. I think we should be looking at this from time to time. Certainly, like you said, within the past 20 years, we haven't changed it, it doesn't look like. And there has been inflation, and so I think this is just a good thing to look at. So I commend you for that. One question is, it actually says 50% of the fees provided will go to police and fire. Where will the other 50% go?
City clerk's office.
City clerk's office. So the general fund, or?
Yeah, I guess so, yes. Because I was talking to City Clerk Timmons. I wish he could have been here tonight, but she was saying that it almost doesn't even cover her expenses to collect the fees for the amount that she's bringing in right now.
Okay.
Because again, the fees are just so antiquated. I mean, they're decades old.
Yeah, okay. I mean, if that's the case, then that, to me, that reads a little bit better, that 50% of it would go to fire and police, and then 50%. I tend to agree with Councilmember Mazzoni. And then, have you had a chance to look at comparable cities like maybe Bryant, Searcy?
Yeah, I had done studies extensively on this, you know, before I did it the first time. I didn't bother bringing all those notes with me again, because I discussed so much of that in the past. I didn't want to repeat myself, and so sorry, because you weren't included on those previous conversations,
Yeah.
so I apologize for not having that information for you. But yeah, we're the lowest in the state.
Yeah.
I mean, the only place lower is Conway, but they have an A&P tax. And again, like I said, the solicitor fee, those were set back in the 1980s.
Yeah, I think making it a little bit more in line with like Little Rock or something might not make so much sense just because it's a larger city maybe, but
Well, see, Little Rock, you know, that's why I was kind of comparing to how what I had paid when I was having business in Little Rock and North Little Rock. You know, it was like $500, where now I'm paying $25 in Maumelle. You know, the $100 would actually be comparative for our size of our city, as opposed to, you know, what other people pay to have a business license in Pulaski County.
yeah. Well, and I think along the lines of what Councilmember Holt said too, and this would again be a question for City Clerk Timmons, is that with our fees being so low, you would think maybe that our home-based businesses would have gone up or would have skyrocketed, or and I'm not sure that that's the case. And I think that's the thought, is that the lower they are, it might attract people, and that doesn't seem to be the case.
Right.
But I would want to know what those numbers are if they've gone up in the past, you know, 10, 15 years before we raised it. But I think there's a good concept here, but I do think that there might need to be a little bit of adjustment or a little more information.
Just a point of clarification, I don't believe ordinances state where the remainder of those fees go. I believe we show, we're trying to show all fees in the budget process in the department that collects them. So we've started showing that fee, I believe, in the city clerk's office, but it's not, insofar as I know, it's not by ordinance, it's just by practice. Councilmember Gardner?
Thank you for clearing that up. That was my next question. I didn't see that we were assigning this to the city clerk's office.
this is a question for, probably for Ms. Russell. I'll direct it to you, Mayor, though. For the next meeting, could we get a list of business fees that are paid by category? Is that something that y'all have access to? I guess and I follow up with Mr. Mosley, what he was asking about. I'm thinking, the fees collected by category and maybe how many are in each category. Is that something that we can reproduce? I thought I remembered that from last time. Ms. Timmons, got that for us. And in response to what you said about the home-based business fee, I remember conversations with Ms. Timmons about this last time, and I don't believe many people were registering as a home-based business. Frankly, I don't think people know they need to. If I want to go start selling yoga pants, which I love yoga pants, I'm not going to. I wouldn't know to go out and get a license fee to sell those, and so I just don't think that's something that that residents are aware they even need to get. And if I knew it was 25, okay, I might pay it. If I knew it was 100, oh what? I didn't know there was an ordinance about that. Sorry, I just don't think they're going to pay a $100 fee to do something out of their house. So, but if we could get a list, I think that would help us with the questions that we're asking about what that may.
It appears as that's a list that the clerk's
Yeah.
office can get.
Super, thank you.
Councilmember Mosley.
Yeah, as far as the home-based business, I don't know how many we've got. I have a feeling there's a lot of people that should be paying a home-based business because they make money out of their home, but they, like you said, they not aware, or they just kind of, if somebody wants it, they'll call me or something. So, and my thought is actually if it goes to 100, there's going to be a lot of people that say, oh, I'm just going to tell them I'm not operating out of here anymore, and they'll quit paying anything. So we'll probably lose numbers in that regard. Thank you.
Mr. City Attorney?
Just wanted to, it was Madam City Clerk Timmons that caught that the solicitor permit fee wasn't a part of the draft. So it wasn't included in the last time, but she caught it this time, and it wasn't me that caught it. I don't want to take credit for it. That's all.
All right, this will be on second reading at the next city council meeting. For the next agenda item is ordinance 1097. That was accidentally not included in the council packet. You have received a copy of it here at your desk. We can either proceed with the first reading of this, and you'll have the second reading and third reading at the next council meetings, or we can table this until the next meeting. If there's not a preference, we'll just go ahead with the reading. Madam Deputy City Clerk, if you could please read ordinance number 1097 by title only, please.
Be it enacted by the City Council of the City of Maumelle, County of Pulaski, State of Arkansas, an ordinance to be entitled Ordinance Number 1097, an ordinance amending the notification procedure for certain planning and permit applications and for other purposes.
All right, this is an ordinance that has been worked on for quite some time and has gone through the Planning Commission. Mr. Grummer, did you want to hit the high points here? The Cliff Notes version of the high points?
So I apologize, Mr. Mayor. I was reading something else on my phone whenever you called me up. This is on the ordinance 1097.
The notification procedure?
Yes, sir. So the notification procedure, you'll notice that we made a few changes that came out of many meetings discussing improvements that need to be made from some previous things that came through Planning Commission and could have been done better communicating wise. The main changes you'll find is we have equalized the number of days required to 15 days notification in newspaper and mail outs. The big change is on the PRD. You'll see that we added a community meeting. So anytime in any of our PRDs that a developer comes forth with a plan that goes to both Planning Commission and the City Council, that they hold a community meeting to get feedback, and that community meeting will happen prior to their application to the city. which allows them to vet out with the community the issues and maybe possibly change things before it gets to us, and will make it easier by the time it gets to Planning Commission and City Council. Those are the main ones. Otherwise, the signs, we've had those big bulky signs, the wood ones that we've put around. Now we have some, I meant to bring it in, I can bring it in the next time, signs that the applicants will provide them. It'll be written, they're in red, easy to see on the side. They'll place it, we'll verify the placement, tell them where it needs to be, and that way it takes a lot of the challenges off of us of having to lug around heavy wooden signs, and puts it on the applicant.
Mr. City Attorney?
Just want to hit a couple other points. Council probably recalls this came out of the event center application from earlier in the year. And one of the oddities about that application was that, so you see that on your first page, this is the code section that has to do with procedures for amending the zoning map. Conditional use permits follow the same procedure. So if you adopt this kind of amendment, it will also affect, for example, if there was ever a future conditional use permit for an event center, that kind of thing. This would change that kind of thing. So although we don't say event center, this very much came out of the community's comments that I think we got at those meetings. One of the oddities of that location was that when you ran 300 feet from the property line, it actually didn't capture that many property owners, because it was surrounded by the country club, and it was kind of an island. You can see at the very bottom of the first page, some of the text that is added is that the planning director may reasonably increase the notification area for any application at his discretion. And we went back and forth on language and how to capture this. What we wanted to do was give the planning director authority to make the applicant increase the notification area for any kind of unique characteristic to the property. And we kind of batted around different language, but we just thought it simpler is better, just to give him that authority to reasonably increase it. So in other words, if another case like that came up again, I think had Mr. Grimmer had the authority at that time and had it been in the code, I think he probably would have said, no, you're not really capturing, for an application of this type, it doesn't, I can't remember how many property owners were on that notification list, but it didn't really capture kind of the importance of the application. So that's one of the bigger changes that I see in this.
Thank you, sir. Councilmember Gardner?
Mr. Grimmer, this all seems very reasonable. I think the only one thing that I had a question about was the community meeting. Where was this idea taken from, or have other cities implemented something like this?
Most cities whenever you have a planned unit development area, there's community meetings that they have. Conway did it whenever I was there, and they currently do the same thing. They also have those meetings prior to the application process, so we kind of mirrored off of that.
Okay, and so just to be kind of clear in my head of the timeline, if they want to do something like this, they're obviously going to discuss with you what needs to happen. They're going to hold a community meeting before they ever even submit their proposal to planning, before it goes to the subcommittee, to the planning commission and all that, the regular meeting. That's kind of the way this flows through as far as timeline goes.
Yeah, they'll be communicating with us prior to the community meeting,
Right.
And then we'll help make sure that their communications, the 300-foot, will start that process of this is how you need to advertise that. And then they'll also work with us on location where it's going to be. It won't be anywhere here. It'll probably be closer to the area where it's the impact is. And another reason for the community meeting is that if you have a regular zoned area, then our zoning code specifies the regulations that they have to follow. In a PUD, the developer can kind of make their own zoning regulation within that PUD. So having that community meeting allows that discussion to happen where we don't have it codified.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
Councilmember Mosley?
Yeah, I don't know if anybody mentioned it, but I think this also, the responsibility to put the signs out is actually shifted to the applicant, is that correct?
That's correct, but the staff will verify its location.
Great, yeah. I'm very proud to be a co-sponsor of this thing, and my favorite part of it is the public meeting, just to prevent the kind of ill feelings we had over that event center. Those folks are still very distrustful. I had a text over the weekend saying they thought they heard that that we were going to be discussing this again tonight about another facility at that location. And I assume there's nothing in the pipeline, but they're just nervous. They're just afraid something worse is going to happen to them over there. Not that this is, well, anyway, we won't get into that. But I'm very thankful to you and the planning commissioners. That's not a fun project to do this. You guys don't like to do these kinds of things, and I really appreciate this. This is something you're doing for the residents, and you're making this a better community. And this one of the things we're leaving it a little bit better place. Thank you.
City Attorney?
Thank you. I don't want to mislead you, Councilmember Mosley. I don't think and correct me if I'm wrong, Scott, the community meeting requirement is for PRD and PCD. It's not a requirement for event centers or a requirement for conditional use permits. It's a separate thing. I can't remember what this particular property, I think it was rezoned as part of the original package. Do you remember if it was rezoned?
It was rezoned PCD.
PCD. So if this had been in place, of course, they did a community meeting later, but I understand that some residents thought it was too little too late. But if this had been in place and it was rezoned PCD, it would have required a community meeting?
That's correct.
Okay, thank you. I just didn't want to mislead. This isn't a flat requirement for any event center that comes up. From now on, it has to have a community meeting. That's not what this does.
Thank you. This will be on second reading at the next city council meeting. The next item of business is Resolution 2023-27, amending the 2023 general fund budget. Typo in the 2023-27 is a resolution regarding Canine Fox. Madam Deputy City Clerk, if you could please read that by title only.
A resolution, excuse me, a resolution of the City Council of the City of Maumelle, County of Pulaski, State of Arkansas, a resolution to be entitled Resolution Number 2023-27, a resolution to authorize the early retirement and sale of Maumelle Police Department Canine Fox.
Thank you. Y'all saw the memo from Chief Pickard and also from Captain Ivy regarding Canine Fox. Long story short, they're wanting to retire Canine Fox a year early and to sell him to former Sergeant Waldo, who's no longer with the Maumelle Police Department. If there are any questions, I do believe Captain Ivy is hiding in the lobby.
Motion to approve Resolution 2023-27. Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion on this? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying yes.
Yes.
All opposed, no. Motion carries. Resolution 2023-27 is adopted. The next order of business is actually Resolution 2023-28, amending the 2023 general fund budget. Madam Deputy City Clerk, if you could please read that by title only.
A resolution of the City Council of the City of Maumelle, County of Pulaski, State of Arkansas, a resolution to be entitled Resolution Number 2023-28, a resolution to amend the 2023 general fund budget.
All right, thanks to a very thorough memo from the city attorney, y'all should know exactly what this is, but did you have anything to add to that, Mr. Thornton?
No, the memo was probably overkill, but I wanted to, because this is something I brought up at the last time we had it on this account. This isn't something that we have a lot of predictability about during the December budget process. So I wanted to give kind of extra explanation about these costs. I'm happy to answer any questions you might have.
All right, Councilmember Mosley?
Yeah, from what I understand, reading your memo, that situation is over at this point. They did not appeal, so it's a done issue. There's no further possibility of litigation or whatever.
So there was no appeal to circuit court. That part is done. Whether there's any possibility of litigation, not as an appeal of the Civil Service Commission decision. I think the statute of limitations on wage and hour or FMLA or something like that is longer than just the 30 days, obviously. So I can't promise you that there's no litigation. But yes, this part is done.
Thank you.
If there's nothing further, I'd entertain a motion to adopt Resolution 2023-28.
Second.
I've got a motion and a second. Any discussion on that motion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying yes.
Yes.
All opposed, no. Motion carries. Resolution 2023-28 is hereby adopted. Next order of business is the election of the President Pro Tem for the next council meeting. I will be out of the office that week and will not be able to attend. Traditionally, though not exclusively, one of the more senior, if not the senior most, council member is appointed, but that's just been the practice of the council. Y'all can choose to nominate and appoint anyone. Councilmember Holt.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I was going to say that in the event that our senior council member is willing to take the chair, it should go to him. Otherwise, I nominate Councilmember Gardner.
Councilmember Mosley.
Yeah, I would do this except for a couple of things. I've got a medical procedure here in about a week. Don't know exactly how that's going to come out. If that comes out okay, I'm supposed to be doing some business in Tulsa, so I would like to beg off. I'm a believer in spreading things around. I would prefer to see somebody else like Mr. Holt, Mr. Mazzoni, Mr. Tierney, somebody like that, say they'll do it. So I'll nominate Mr. Holt.
Appreciate the nomination, but I decline.
We could always go by the tried and true, you just nominate and appoint Councilmember Williams, being she's not here to object. But I'm going to go ahead and take Councilmember Holt's nomination of Councilmember Gardner as a nomination.
Right.
Are there any other nominations?
One of you two guys, you other two guys interested at all? Mr. Mazzoni, you're so good. No? I'll nominate you.
Crickets.
I'll nominate Mr. Mazzoni.
We have a nomination for Mr. Mazzoni. Any other nominations? I have no idea how we handle a dual nomination.
I'll withdraw my name.
Councilmember Gardner has withdrawn. We have one nomination in the form of Councilmember Mazzoni. Any additional nominations? Seeing none, all those in favor of appointing Councilmember Mazzoni as President Pro Tem for the September 18th council meeting, signify by saying yes.
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 All opposed, say no. That is done. Done. The vote was counted, and that was it. Mayor's comments. I already introduced Chief of Staff. Good news, mixed good news. Mostly, it's all good news, just not as good a news as I would have liked to have reported. Y'all may recall we applied for a grant for the Club Manor project. That was a project estimated early on. Engineering is not complete. Early engineer estimates are that the project will be $2.3 million. We applied for a grant to receive 80% of that, which would have been $1.85 million. We received the grant for $1.1 million. So good news in that it's $1.1 million we didn't have. Not as good as it could have been because it's still $700,000 less than we would have preferred. But nonetheless, still good news. Happy to have it. We'll have to discuss those sort of plans and how to pay for it, or if we're going to decline it or whatnot. We'll have those discussions in the budget meetings once we get those solidified and get a good glimpse at where we are at. That concludes mayor's comments, council member comments. Councilmember Holt.
Sorry I was not able to be here last week, but I had received a email, as everyone else did, I believe, from a lady, Ms. Melissa Kennedy, and she explained about her mother-in-law who parked her car at the swimming pool and locked the car, but she left her purse in the car, and the windows were broken when she got back, and the purse was stolen. So her request was that she would like to personally ask for all of us to please consider putting a citywide security camera in the budget this year. I promised her that I would mention it to the council. Was that by any chance brought up and discussed last week at all? Okay. I didn't know, so I thought I would just, that's all I have on that. I replied back and told her I regret hearing that, but we do encourage everyone to not leave anything valuable in the vehicle and to please use the trunk area when you're away from whether you're away from home or away. So I just wanted to make that on the record, and perhaps we can talk about that in our budget meeting coming up later.
Thank you, sir. Councilmember Mosley.
Yeah, at the last meeting, we were talking about the status of the ACFR and the audit, and I did have a conversation with the auditors today. From what I understand, Ms. Mathis presented them with some ACFR information, I think about a week and a half ago. It was probably after our last council meeting, and I think that was the whole deal at the last council meeting. We were waiting to see if she could finalize it there in the next few days. And but from what I understand, there's still a little glitch. Some of the numbers don't balance. So and so she's forwarded it to the auditors, and they're supposed to be taking a look at it and see if they can figure out what's the matter. They admit they have been totally snowed and haven't had a chance to mess with it for a week and a half here. So I got the feeling they were asking for more time, so I'm not going to make any motion tonight to go ahead and turn that process, that ACFR process, over to the auditors. They said if they can figure it out, then they'll go with Ms. Mathis's stuff. But there is a balancing problem. And Mr. Mayor, you can tell me if I misunderstood him.
No, that's correct, although I think pointing it out implies that that's atypical and that there was some sort of issue. Typically, we work with the auditors, and there are multiple times where we're going back and forth for those numbers. So but everything you said is correct. Yes, sir.
Okay. So I won't be making any motion tonight. We'll see where we are at the next meeting. So I had one more comment if nobody else has one.
Floor is yours, Mr. Mosley.
Okay. Just wanted to ask, I had a constituent that emailed me wanting to know who the contractor is on the roundabout, the roundabout we did groundbreaking on, and when the target date for completion is.
I don't have the target date for completion. The contractor is Redstone.
Redstone?
Redstone.
Redstone,
yes.
Okay. Do you have any estimate yourself,
Well, I was thinking 280 days, but Councilmember Gardner thought it was 270 days. Those both sound right to me. It's about that amount.
About 270 days? Is it-
If you're asking me to guess, my educated guess without looking at the contract is that.
I'll tell him it's an educated
it's
guess.
I believe it's right around 270, 280 days, right in that region. It was less than a year if memory serves.
All right. Thank you, sir.
And Redstone is who, we used them, they did the parking lot out here, and then they do a lot of our overlays in town. They're a company that we were very happy to see win the bid, and the price was where we wanted it to be, so. A little bit, it's a much bigger organization than maybe we've used in some other.
Maybe the one on Crystal
Just
Hill.
other places, generally speaking, sir.
If, Mr. Mayor, also, if you ever feel the need, if it would help maybe jumpstart that contractor a little bit, I think the council would probably be happy to invite him to come and give us a timeline or something like that. So we're here for you.
For Redstone?
No,
the other project?
for Crystal Hill.
Yeah. Yeah. We had, in fact, Deb, who, my chief of staff, knows several of the people down there, was down there today with photographs and building our case, and we've been in communication actually today also with the contractor and engineers on this project. So it is not a complete project. It is being worked on with renewed zeal, thanks to Deb. So I think we're going to
Great.
continue to harass them with I'm going to stick Deb on them, and they'll be begging to finish the project.
Sounds like a plan. Thank you.
Any additional council member comments? City attorney comments? City clerk comments? Motion to adjourn comments?
Mayor, I make a motion to adjourn the city council meeting of September the 5th, 2023.
We've got a motion and I think a second on as well. Any discussion on that motion? All those in favor, please signify by saying yes. Yes. All opposed, no. Motion carries. We are adjourned. Thank you for your service.